It's just so peaceful today. I was standing in the kitchen at the window, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go sit outside, watch the leaves fall. Maybe I'll get to catch some leaves falling on the video. I'm sitting outside, and I brought my iced coffee out. This time of year is my favorite time of year. Me and the pastor and the kids camped a lot during this time of the year, up till the first week of December. We went a lot in September, October, and then November. We would camp on Thanksgiving, and we had a fifth wheel, but we also had a pop-up camper too that they would take when they would just go hunting sometimes. So on Thanksgiving, the older the boys got and the bigger they got, because Buck was about 6 foot, the pastor was 6'1", and the boys are between 6'1", 6'2". And as they got a little bigger, we would take both at Thanksgiving. And that way it gave us more room in the fifth wheel to do all the cooking for Thanksgiving Day. And I will never forget one year I went down, we always got lots right beside each other. We didn't park the fifth wheel and the pop-up on the same lot because the fifth wheel was too long. It was a 33 foot. And so the boys would stay up at the fifth wheel, till late at night watching TV, and then they would go down to their site next to us, and they'd build a fire, and they'd sit outside, and we would walk down there and we would roast marshmallows. And then, of course, I would take the graham crackers and the chocolate so they could make s'mores. But I remember this. Let me turn the camera around this way. The leaves are falling on this side. Because the wind's blowing. And I'll prop you up right here. Maybe if they start falling, we can see them. But anyway, that year I had took a big cooker that my mother-in-law had got me one year for Christmas. It was huge. I mean, you could cook probably a 25-pound turkey in this cooker. I think the view over here is better. But me and the pastor had walked down there, like I say, and they were sitting by their fire, and I told them, I said, now I'm going to put this turkey on. And I told Buck, our oldest, I said, then when you get up, you keep an eye on it if you get up, to go to the restroom or anything. I said, but it should be all right because I got it on low. Well, the boys woke up, I guess it was probably about 7 o'clock. And they come up to the fifth wheel and knocking on the door. And they said, Mama, we think the turkey's burning. So I put on my robe and went down there, and he came on down there. And sure enough, when he went in the pop-up, you could smell, something that was burning. And you know how you have broth left from the turkey and you make your dressing. That's what I did, my mama did, my mama. my mama on my daddy's side. And so that's why I wanted, to be on low and them to keep an eye if they got up, you know, because I needed the broth to make the dressing. And I'll never forget, they said, "Oh, Mama, it's got broth in it still. It's just, the turkey had kind of burned on the bottom." So I told him, I said, "Well, I made my cornbread and stuff and potato salad and things I could make at home before we left that week. I would make it home and we would just put in the refrigerator in the fifth wheel." And the pop-up had a fridge in it too, but so anyway, I took the cooker and we just took the whole thing, me and the pastor, and took it back up to the fifth wheel. And we pulled that turkey out, and it, was burnt. I mean, and bless their heart, I think they had added water, thinking, But anyway, this is just a memory that as I was watching the leaves fall, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna turn on the phone and I'm gonna talk about this memory as I, like I say, was watching the leaves fall from the window. And anyway, when they come up there, they said, Mama, please try to make the dressing out of the broth that's in there." I said, "Boys, there is no broth." And they're like, "Yep, that's what makes it so good, Mama." So I told them as I proceeded to do it that it wasn't going to be any good. It was going to taste burnt. No, I could add, the broth in the container, and Thanksgiving wouldn't be Thanksgiving without dressing. And let me back up, because after we would do lunch, we would drive to either my in-laws or my dad's, and we would do supper. And then the one that was their turn, then we would do the next, like if it was my dad's turn, then we would do my in-laws on Friday, and vice versa. So I told the kids, I said, we made the dressing. It was horrible. It was so bad, but we laughed and laughed. And that's just a memory that even though we didn't have dressing, we laughed about it. And we still had the mac and cheese, potato salad, rolls, green beans, the turkey, because the turkey was fine all but the bottom. And I love stuff that's burnt, so that was right up my alley, because I love that. And the kids were like, "That's just like jerky, Mama." But I love my sausage burnt. I love my hamburgers burnt. I mean, I just love stuff to be burnt. But as I stood at the kitchen window and I thought about that, and thought about the pastor and the memories, and memories with our boys, and what a good time that was, even though we didn't have dressing that year. But we were very blessed to have and to be and have the opportunity to have a fifth wheel and a pop-up that we could take our children to Florida, Alabama, Tennessee. I've told y'all about the week that we went to Florida in August. He said, "We will never come back to Florida in August." Our camper, the fifth wheel, the air could not keep up because it was so hot, And we were right on the Gulf, because we would go to camping on the Gulf is where we camped. And beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, right on the beach. And me and him didn't get out of the camper the first 3 days, because, it was miserable. But, the boys were younger, and all they cared about, was there's 3 swimming pools in that camping place. There's game where they could go play games, and there was snack, you know, things inside. You could get ice cream and different stuff like that. So they didn't mind. Kids don't mind if it's hot. But like I say, I was sitting at the window and I was thinking about that memory and how this is the time of year that we really love to sit out this time of day. We'd build our fire in the fire pit and sit around, and cook roast hot dogs and cook hamburgers. And, we mainly cooked on the grill. We love to put the baked potatoes or corn on the fire pit, because the fire pits in the campsites and the camp places that we go, state parks, their fire pit has a thing that lets down, and it's the grill. You've probably seen it on Boots Outdoors. They go to a lot of places that we camp too, and we just love that, because we just sit around the fire, and then they would fish. We'd all go fishing, and one day I'll tell a story about when the boys were fishing one day. That was a funny fishing trip too, but it was a good memory, of what happened that time that I'll just say they put the boat in the water, and it was funny. I'll share it one day. But like I say, just seeing these leaves fall, and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. See how pretty the colors are. But it just brought back such good memories of our kids growing up and what we loved to do. And we did a lot as a family. We always, raising your children and give them a goodly heritage starts at home. It's not the church's place to raise your children. So, we did a lot with our kids. We rode four-wheelers. I've told y'all I would go hunting with them. Like today would be a perfect day to hunt. And we would go into the woods about 4:30, probably this afternoon, 4:30. And, I could wear my kids' camouflage jumpsuits. I could wear theirs. So I would just suit up in whatever they weren't going to wear. And they would get in the deer stand and I would sit on the ground. But it was about being together. It was about spending time together and experiencing, what we were there to do together. And, you try your best to raise and bring them up, as Proverbs 22:6 tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. And that's the thing. And our boys, I can honestly say, never gave us any trouble at all. Now, did they do things that we were disappointed? Yes. Do I do things that disappoint people? Yes. Did the pastor do things that might disappoint his family? Because you don't always agree, even though they don't agree with you. Not really disappoint. I guess really they don't agree. When your kids get grown and they make their own decisions, that's between them and the Lord. And, you just train them up the best that you can, and you use the Word of God to do that. That's our instruction guide for everything. And I think the squirrel's mad at me because I'm sitting outside. They love to play in the backyard, the squirrels do. But, and I'm thankful that I have a lot, some land here. And that I got to experience hunting with the kids. Fishing. Y'all have seen pictures I've shared of us fishing together. I'll never forget, we went camping one time and we actually just took our tent because we were just going to stay one night. And this was on a lake that you had to go down a dirt road. So we just took our tent. Well, it come a storm that night, and we loaded up and left everything there, and just drove home and came back the next morning, because it was pretty bad. It was lightning and thundering and raining pretty hard. And the boys were just begging to stay, and their daddy's like, we'll come back tomorrow, the weather's too bad. And speaking of that, I got a lot of storms last night. I'm supposed to get some more today. I had an accident that I'm not going to talk about, but I appreciate your prayers. I appreciate the ones that know what happened, and you are praying. So I appreciate that so much. The ones that know what happened, I appreciate your prayers so much. Still experiencing some pain, and this is a pretty view too. You can see the sky over in the background. I knew when I come outside and turned on this thing that the leaves would quit falling. But it's just beautiful. But like I say, as I stood in the kitchen and I thought about, when we would camp, this is what was around us at our site, was just woods. And I thought, well, I'll go outside, and that way y'all could see. You can see some of the leaves falling. Let me see. And you can hear people that's another thing that brought that to my mind, is there's a lot of shooting going on around me. But I don't think they're hunting. I think they're just shooting. But I just wanted to share that memory with y'all. It's a good one. So, but remember, as I always say, know that I love you. I'm praying for you. But the Lord loves us so much more. And I'm so thankful that He loves us unconditional. It doesn't matter what we think of ourselves. We know that we are in Christ. And that's the thing that encourages me. Because I know when God sees me, He sees me. But most of all, He sees the blood. It's been applied to my heart. And He knows me better than I know myself. He knows me better than anybody else knows me. He knows what's truth and what's not. And that's what's so wonderful, is that God knows. And I falter and I fail. But I do know that God is in full control, and I'm saved, and I'm on my way to heaven. So I pray everybody has a good weekend. Once again, thank you for your prayers for the ones that know what has happened. I appreciate it. And may God continue to touch us all, and may we lift each other up in prayer. I pray y'all have a wonderful, blessed weekend.